It took me a while to figure out where Marvel's Loki show was going on Disney+. It definitely held my intrigue, but it wasn't until episode 2, the episode called The Variant, where we get a conversation between Tom Hiddleston's Loki and Owen Wilson's Mobius that brought the show's real-world allegory to life. Loki calls out Mobius for believing that the Time Variance Authority, or the TVA, is run by 3 wise timekeepers who nobody has seen, and runs on the idea that only one timeline is the correct one, while all other timelines should be terminated.
I don't get hung up on believe, not believe. I just accept what is.
3 magic lizards.
Timekeepers.
Mobius tries to flip this logic, saying that it's just as weird that Loki is the son of a frost giant and was raised by Viking gods on Asgard. The problem with that argument is that Loki has seen his background. He's lived through it. Asgard and the frost giants are real. But Mobius has never met the Timekeepers, and he's kept in the dark about the overall ongoings at the TVA. This show is about blind faith, the kind of blind faith that leads to cultism. My name's Josh Taylor, this is Modern Mouse, and today I want to talk about what Loki teaches us about blind faith and how the show warns us against its real-world dangers. Throughout the first 3 episodes of Marvel's Loki, we see that the people of the TVA have strong beliefs. Mobius tells us that everyone that works at the TVA have been there for their entire lives. They weren't really ever born. They were never infants or children. They were just created as they are, to protect the sacred timeline, whatever that is. It never really gets brought up, but we're led to believe that nobody at the TVA really fully knows why that specific timeline is sacred. Mobius is completely faithful to the TVA. He never really questions the authority above him. He believes that if he does a good job, he'll be rewarded. What that reward is, we don't know, and he probably doesn't even know. He probably wishes it was a jet ski.
Desk. That magazine.
Yeah, the one on jet skis.
Yes. Why'd you have that?
Because they're awesome.
But he's more than happy to bury himself in work in order to be a true follower of the Timekeepers. This kind of loyalty is called blind faith. It's a term commonly attached to religion, although it doesn't necessarily have to be, and we'll get into that later. But there are several reasons why people opt to blindly hold their beliefs. This isn't necessarily the case for Loki, but one of the reasons is that people fall into blind faith because they're looking for answers. They're looking for a solution to their problems. Or they see a figure that they connect with and understand, and decide to follow the beliefs of that person. What is relevant to Loki is that as soon as they adopt those beliefs, people usually keep busy, not having the time to ever test those beliefs. A strategy among cults is to make sure that people are constantly busy, but also content, so that they never really question their authority or their own understanding of what's happening, often leaving them in the dark to a larger picture. Even if people have free time, they don't question their blind faith, which can come from a fear of their entire belief system collapsing. For Mobius, he doesn't question the TVA, even when told he should by Loki, because it's all he's ever known. If he were to no longer believe that the universe and all of time is ruled by 3 giant timekeepers who protect one single timeline, or that his work at the TVA is actually meaningless, he would then have many more questions, not just about the TVA, but about himself. If he no longer believed in the timekeepers, what does he believe in? Who is he? What's his purpose in the universe? People that leave cults typically end up in some kind of therapy or recovery program because they don't really understand where they fit into the world. Everything that they've ever believed is gone, and that could lead to depression or anxiety or a relapse into blindly following something else. But blind faith isn't just toxic when it comes to cults in that kind of extreme manner. Religion in general has had its fair share of serious problems when it comes to people following with blind faith. And this might be controversial for me to say, but Christianity has continued to teeter into being harmful for those who follow it blindly, and it has for centuries. Many people in the Western world have turned to Christianity to look for acceptance, understanding, love, or just a general place in the world. But if you look at Christianity's history, entire groups of people have been slaughtered in the name of the Christian God. Land has been conquered, and even in recent times, we've seen the Bible used as justification for hate speech within the LGBTQ+ community, or the Muslim community, or really anyone not leaning into politics of conservative Christian values. Before you make that comment where you say, well, it's not all Christians, I know, but Christianity has been abused over and over again. And people that follow Christianity, even blindly, continue to be linked to very powerful people who continue to cover up scandals from priests, or allow televangelists to take your money, or elect politicians that pander to those Christian values without ever digging deeper into what that politician really stands for. That kind of blind faith in Christianity is a slippery slope to cultism. And cultism doesn't mean that you live on a ranch with 20 other people and worship some guy named Dave. Cultism can look like nationalism. It's acceptable to love your country, but to turn a blind eye to its wrongdoings and believe that it's the greatest country ever just because you're told it is, doesn't lead to anything positive. It's why we see murders every night on the news. We see politicians being paid off by large corporations. We're currently seeing this problem of nationalism in the United States of America, and we keep telling ourselves that we're the greatest country on earth, while also neglecting the average citizen, who's making wages that are so low that they're continuing to live in low-income housing or being struck by poverty. And we're seeing infrastructure problems where lead poisoning is let into water supplies and we're not even able to drink the water. Or we're seeing buildings collapse in on people. Cultism can also look like toxic fandom. For instance, even within the Marvel movies, we see a lot of people who are up in arms about the hiring of Brie Larson and her portrayal of Captain Marvel. The group mentality that has been created around her as an actress, based on her stance about Hollywood and it still favoring white men, brought a lot of negativity to the fandom around Marvel. And that cult mentality believes that she brought the character and the movies down. But she was never the writer or the producer or the director. So that stance doesn't really make sense when you think about it. Getting back to Loki, the TVA is run with group mentality and fear. If you were to question anything, or to not work, you'd be isolated from the rest of the group, or worse yet, pruned into non-existence by your peers.
Prune him.
Mobius worries about losing his job frequently, and when Loki tells him that the TVA is lying to him, his initial reaction is to side with the TVA over Loki, due to his own fear and group thinking. Those above Mobius, like Ravonna, are fearful of what can happen to them, while also trying to keep the secrets of the TVA so that those under her can continue to stay blind to the real ongoings within this cult-like organization. Like the TVA, cultism in all forms preys on blind faith, and that doesn't matter if it's religious or political or anything else. They make you believe that acceptance is conditional, whether that means that you have to stand for the same beliefs or provide economical funding, or maybe it's even to protect the organization and its leaders at all cost. Despite what you may have been told in the past, it's not wrong to question everything. Faith isn't about blindly following. It's about believing in something based on the outcomes of the questions that you've asked, to fully comprehend and understand what you stand for, and that applies to everything in life. We should really be encouraging each other to ask more questions about the things that we believe. The end result of that questioning will weed out the false idols, those evil organizations, or the dangerous rhetoric. Questioning everything will make you wiser and more sure of yourself and your belief system. Honestly, it's easy to get caught up in blind faith, but it's also really lazy. It discourages questioning and will ultimately fail those who follow without really understanding. That's the lesson in Loki. It's a show about belief, questioning it, reinterpreting your stance on things, and ultimately bettering your life based on the answers you get. That's it. That's Loki's glorious purpose, to tell you about what you believe and why you should question it. I honestly love the show, and I love where it's gone. I've really loved all of the Marvel shows, and I've taken a lot of lessons from those Marvel shows. So if you're interested in hearing more about WandaVision per se, and the message that came from that show, the warnings that it has about depression, click the video here to watch that. And until next time, my friends, as always, keep moving forward.